Paul George was traded to Oklahoma City Thunder. Will they be contenders?
Huh?
Also, Jays cannot pick up any W's lately. What's going on?
What?
Plus, the Raptors look to lock up Kyle Lowry. Whatever happened to the culture change in Toronto?
I'm confused.
If you're looking for the answers, you won't find it here. It's John and Mike, and we're talking puck. Alright, and welcome to another episode of Talkin Puck with John and Mike. And Mike, how you doing today?
Doing good.
Good stuff.
Interested with all the free agency moves.
Yeah, man.
What a week.
What a week it has been, and I promise it's going to be a good one. We're going to look at all the Canada Day signings for the free agency in the NHL. We'll also discuss some contracts of some re-signing, actually, especially a big one that just happened recently, and some breaking news that we just heard just now before starting this podcast, and we'll get to that, and it does involve the Toronto Maple Leafs, so there is some big news with the Leafs. So let's get this thing rolling. Carey Price signs an 8-year extension with the Montreal Canadiens at a 10.5 annual average salary cap hit. What do you think of this signing?
Not surprised at all. He is the best in the world.
Now,
as a goalie.
It's funny you say that because you're saying he's the best goaltender in the world. We just saw the best player. I could obviously say it's a forward in Connor McDavid getting 13.25 out of the Edmonton Oilers. Don't you think that's something that was in Carey Price's mind? Why couldn't he get more out of Montreal? I'm kind of confused, but it is a great deal nonetheless. I think maybe he was just trying to make sure he doesn't handcuff the team, but who knows at this point.
He won't handcuff the team with that contract.
No, not with a $10.5 million.
He wanted to stay in Montreal no matter what.
Yeah.
His heart belongs there.
Well,
now, the
so
Subban trade was... Yeah, I was going to go that way. Yeah. The Subban trade was unexpected, but Carey Price, I think the GM's head would be on a pole and on a stake. Like somebody's head would roll off if Price got away.
I don't think Bergevin will have a job if he were to trade Carey Price. That is... Or let Carey Price walk, really. Could you imagine if that happened? Yeah. I knew this was coming. I knew it was going to be a double-digit contract. I honestly thought it was going to be a little more of a cap hit. But nonetheless, it is a $10.5 million cap hit at 8 years. I think for the best goaltender in the world, I thought he was going to get more.
Who's the next down the line in Montreal? Is it Weber on the contract?
Yeah, I believe so. Weber would be the second one. And mind you, and it's a good thing that you mentioned that because one of the big topics right now is teams not using an offer sheet to pick up someone like a restricted free agent in Leon Draisaitl. And it's funny because I find that some of the GMs are being a little bit too nice with each other. Because why wouldn't you go for someone like Draisaitl if you're looking for a number one center? You know, you got McDavid, and I mean, like, you can sign Draisaitl. But now they're talking about having Draisaitl trying to sign an 8-year deal at $7 or even $8 million. Draisaitl's looking for about 9, close to double digits and 10.
Is it worth it?
Well... That's the thing. You're at a point.
He had a really interesting playoff, didn't he?
Yes, he did. I think he was one of the best performers in that Oiler locker room. Obviously, Connor McDavid probably excluded off that list. But as a GM of another team, if you're desperate to find that number one guy, wouldn't you make an offer sheet? Because Edmonton's GM, Peter Chiarelli, has gone out without any questions from the media and said to the public that he would match any offer made by another team. And it's kind of gutsy, I would say, to make a bold prediction like that. But if you have the money, maybe he is worth it, maybe he's not. It's a gamble at this point. Obviously, McDavid is the guy you needed to sign. Make sure he's staying an Edmonton Oiler as long as he could.
No one expected him to go anywhere anyway, so...
No, absolutely not. But it is interesting to see. A big name they're trying to trade is Colorado's Matt Duchene. Obviously, Colorado just had a terrible year. I don't think Joe Sakic wants Duchene in Colorado. It looks like he's ready to part ways with him, but the return seems to be a very, very steep price tag. But in the clearing here, Boston and Columbus are probably the favorites here to pick him up. Who do you see Duchene going to?
I see him ending up in Columbus.
In Columbus?
Something in my gut. Steve Yzerman's going to go off. Or Steve, sorry. He's going to end up in Columbus. I was going to say Joe Sakic. So, though the price Sakic is asking for is quite high, I see Columbus giving up those instead of Boston for that price.
I see it the other way around. I see now that Columbus has acquired Panarin, I'm thinking maybe they're not so interested in picking up Duchene. I'm not saying they wouldn't. I'm saying they're not as, in a mode where they need someone of that nature because they picked up a guy in Panarin. Yeah, you had to trade Saad for him, but I think they won that end of the deal.
Okay, but who's your number 2 guy in Columbus then? If you don't have a Duchene type of player, because like everyone's saying, Crosby's got Malkin and Malkin got Crosby, right?
That is true.
True. After picking up Panarin, then who's next on the line down the roster?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I just think there's, Columbus has a decent team. They got Cam Atkinson. They got some really good players there. I think that complements the team. I think even Brendan Dubinsky is one of those players that fit in a Columbus lineup because you need that sort of player there. So I'm not too sure if Boston is in more need of a Duchene type of player rather than Columbus. It'll be interesting to see because Duchene is not cheap and Colorado is not asking for nothing here. They're asking for a lot in return. So it'll be interesting to see there. Now, I'm kind of confused about a trade that happened over this week. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a GM. I obviously don't know a lot of the stuff that goes on backstage that I should know, but I find that the expansion of the Vegas Golden Knights has gone in a completely different manner in which I thought it would go, and that's sort of a problem for me because you're trying to build a team in a market that has no professional sports team. And
what was the last professional? Las Vegas? What was it? The XFL there?
Yeah, what was it? Rampage, I
think,
or
something like that.
Something ridiculous. But this is the first one of the big 4 sports leagues to get a team there, followed by the NFL coming in later on. But you're trying to make ice hockey work in the desert, and we've heard the story before.
Sounds familiar.
In Arizona, and that clearly didn't work. But obviously, Vegas is a different market. Obviously, we all know what Vegas is known for.
Cha-ching.
But the way they're going is that, yeah, seriously, cha-ching. Yeah, cha-ching for them. They're stealing all my money. But it's interesting now to see they're building for the future, which I would understand in any other market.
See, I'm confused. I'm thinking maybe what you're thinking. Why not build a team that starts winning now to get the people in the seats?
Exactly.
You get your people, yes, you get your season ticket holders, but you want other people to come in and be, oh, let's go catch a game. They're not going to come and watch a team that's, let's say, 10 wins in 40 games.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. And it's kind of weird because they picked up some good players.
Oh, they did.
But they left some of these unprotected players as a member of their former roster because they made a side deal. And I understand, teams, they didn't have enough space in their protection list to protect a player they wanted to, so they kind of bargained with Vegas to pick someone else in exchange for a pick. And that's fine, I get that, I understand the whole process, but I just think if I was George McPhee, if I was wearing his shoes, I would have called all the GMs, and I would have said, listen, I need to make Vegas a viable market for the NHL. What should I do? I should build a team that is competitive yet young, that will grow into an even better team as time goes on. Even if you make a team that is a contender, that's well enough worth for it.
It doesn't have to be a contending team. It needs to be a team competitive where at least a few wins, maybe even make the playoffs.
Well, yeah, even a first round exit, I'd be happy with. But now, the problem is they made these side deals all for in the sake of the future. But here we see a trade where they sent Alexei Emelin to Nashville for a 2019 third round pick. Now, before we get into a little bit of the specifics here, we need to keep in mind here, this is a 2019 third round pick for a guy that you would think would fetch more in the market, going to a team that obviously already has defensive prowess, I would say. But
he would play with Subban.
I was actually making a joke the other day. It's like, can you pick a pair in the Nashville defensive lineup that wouldn't be your number one defensive pairing? Like, I don't think there's a guy that you'd be worried about being a defensive pairing out there. So I'm not too sure what Vegas was trying to think here, because not only did they just get a third round pick, but they retained 29% of Emelin's contract.
See, it's all over with that Clarkson thing. They're eating up contract. I don't understand what this team is doing.
Well, yeah, that's what I don't get. And I find it interesting. I find it actually really interesting because you have a team with a clean slate. Nothing, you owe nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
And you go and pick up contracts that other GMs made mistakes with.
Yeah.
So you can get some first rounders. And I mean, obviously there's a couple first rounders you want where it'll turn out to be a Connor McDavid. If
there is a chance there's another player like that.
That's what I'm saying.
What are the odds of that?
But look at the draft
again?
lottery anyway. Vancouver was expected to be high up there, and it ended up being in order of New Jersey, Philadelphia, then Dallas. Philadelphia had like a 2% of getting a second overall pick here, and they got it. So it's never a guarantee that you're going to be a top pick. But nonetheless, they retained 29% of Emelin's contract for seemingly nothing in return, which boggles my mind because you're trying to make a competitive team here, but you now dealt Van Riemsdyk, Methot, Emelin. I mean, is there anybody else in your defensive core that, Derek Englund, I think, is their number one guy, and he's a 37-year-old defenseman.
35, he's making it. Well, I'm looking here, they have Jason Garrison,
which is okay.
Lucas Piazza.
Yeah, Lucas Piazza is a good pick out of Vancouver.
Clayton Stoner. I don't know.
That one right there, Clayton Stoner, another one that boggles my mind because Sami Vatanen was exposed for the expansion and they didn't touch him. So in exchange, they got Shea Theodore, a defenseman out of Anaheim, in exchange for not picking Vatanen.
Seeing what they did was a waste of time if they went after Vatanen.
Yeah, that's true too. At this point, are they even building a team? That's what I'm saying. I honestly don't know. All right, and now I want to get to the good stuff here. Some free agency news that just came out right before we came on to do our podcast involving the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that is picking up Patrick Marleau from the San Jose Sharks, free agent who signed a 3-year deal with Toronto at a $18.75 million deal.
6.25.
Yeah,
6.25. Yeah.
Annual cap hit. 27 goals, 19 assists for 46 points, a +4 rating. What do you think of this? Do you think this is a good deal, a bad deal? Is this something you would have done in being a Maple Leaf?
Well, according to sources, they're going to be over the cap. So now it's just to wait and see what they're going to do next. I think it was a good pickup, but I don't know what they're going to do next.
It is an expensive pickup. It is a 6.25 cap hit. But you got to remember something. All of Toronto's players here are on entry-level deals still. And they're not even going to be able to negotiate with Matthews until next year. So I think this is a good deal. I just think the term is 1 year too long. It should have been a 2-year deal. Just because, again, of the Matthews situation. You got Matthews, you got Marner, you got Nylander, all of those guys coming up. You want to make sure you have that cap space to make some good deals here. But nonetheless, I think you need that veteran leadership. They lost Brian Boyle into free agency. You need a guy that will kind of show that veteran leadership in the locker room and on the ice.
Matthews, Nylander, and Marner, so Matthews is up to the 2019 season, start of it. He's going to be restricted. And Marner. And then Nylander, he's going to be an RFA at the end of this season coming up.
Yeah.
So
and that's why I don't think I think a 2-year deal would be better. I honestly think that. I thought a 2-year deal would be better. 3 years, I can take the hit. I don't think it's too big of a cap hit that would diminish their 1 year. But nonetheless, Patrick Marleau is now a Toronto Maple Leaf, and we had thought where Marleau was going to go, Thornton was going to go, but he signs a 1-year deal in San Jose, a 50-point player. Obviously, his numbers kind of slid from the year before, but he's still a pretty good player. Would you have preferred Thornton over Marleau in Toronto?
As a Habs fan, I wanted him in Montreal. Thornton in Montreal.
Yeah, there
were
rumors.
The rumors were going around that he was going to Montreal, and we'd been dying for a big player. And yes, Duran is nice, but he's not the big guy that... Because Montreal's been small for years. They got to go a different direction. Which I noticed they're doing with the defense core now. The defense is a little bit nastier.
Yeah. When
they picked up Weber, no one's going to crash the crease like they did when Subban was there.
Yeah, I... As someone who follows the Flyers, obviously I'm more biased to the Philadelphia Flyers, but I think Toronto, if they had a shot, they would have been a better fit for Joe Thornton, but I think Patrick Marleau is still a player that will produce some good points and, again, bring that leadership to your team. And that's
the reason why Toronto, I guess.
Because this is clear. This is very clear to me. We all know what's going to happen in Toronto. We know Matthews is the guy. We know that. We know he's going to get the C in his sweater. There's no rush to put it on him. So why not get someone to groom him? And I mean, again, Thornton would have been, I think, a better option, but nothing to take away from Patrick Marleau here. I think he's got some good stuff here that he could help with the Toronto.
I thought he would go to a cup contending team. To tell you the truth.
You think so? Huh?
I thought Marleau would end up somewhere like, I don't want to say Pittsburgh because that would be difficult to go back to back to back, but I thought it would be a team more likely to have a playoff push.
Yeah.
Maybe even a Nashville appearance kind of thing. Maybe try to go back to back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the 3P happen in Pittsburgh with Daly gone, Bonino gone. Bonino, I'm kind of...
I was confused with that one.
That one was a big contract for Nashville to sign. A 4-year deal, $16.4 million. So that's 4.1 cap hit. That is a lot of money.
Now with Bonino there, you think they make another playoff run?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes. Yeah. You're replacing one guy in James Neal. Bonino had 18 goals, 19 assists for 37
points.
But
at the end, he was hurt there, wasn't he? He was hurt at the end of the playoff run.
Yeah, everyone was hurt.
No, but that Pittsburgh lineup was...
Yeah. You got to remember, Neal was hurt too. Yeah. He had issues with his hands, I believe. So, does it replace Neal? No, I don't think so. But I don't think this hurts the team either. I think this would be, nonetheless, a good acquisition if the contract was a little bit lower. But now we're gonna look at some of these cap hits coming up for Montreal with Carl Alzner, a 5-year term with a $23.1 million contract. He had 3 goals, 10 assists for the entire season. Granted, he was a plus 23 player, but he had 13 points. Do you consider this something that Montreal absolutely needed? This is a player they absolutely needed? Or is it just to plug a defensive hole?
I think they didn't... I think it was to plug up in case they don't sign Markov.
Okay.
If they don't sign Markov, that's their thing. Markov is asking for $6 million per year for 2 years.
Yeah.
So $12 million. It's kind of pricey on what Markov does per year.
Right.
And I think they get more out of Alzner than they would get out of Markov.
Right.
That's where I see where they plug that up. They plug that up with... As a Habs fan, I'm waiting for them to sign somebody where, like, okay, I'm happy with Drouin, but I hope they get Radulov.
Yeah. Like,
I got this hope for it, but the thing is, can Radulov carry the team? That's my question.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Montreal also picked up a couple other players, most notably Peter Holland, former Leaf. Not sure how Leaf fans feel about that. Also Joe Morrow, which plugs another defensive hole. But I'm kind of at that point where it's like, would you have rather Alzner for 5 years or Markov for 2?
Give me Alzner.
You would take Alzner.
I'm just thinking Markov had his time in Montreal.
Yeah.
He should... I don't say he should retire, but I don't think Montreal should continue. We should go a different way. I see them going a different way as soon as they got rid of Subban, or they traded Subban. But I just think it's a different team. We should go a different way. We tried with Markov.
It didn't work.
It didn't work with Markov. Sorry, Markov, but...
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting Montreal team, to say the least. A little bit of a different look, especially now with Drew.
So they got Weber, Petrie, Alzner, Schlemko, Davidson, Jordy Ben, and Joe Morrow.
Yeah.
It's a rough, tough defense.
It is. And I think that's sort of what Montreal has been lacking in previous years. So this would be a little bit of a different look for a Habs team that was always considered small. And
now that blue line is going to be weak. Beef.
Yeah. Now the more heavy hitters back there. That's what you kind of need.
Yeah.
And it all started with that Weber trade, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
that happened when he got hurt Price got hurt in the playoffs. Yeah. When it was Kreider, if I correct.
Yeah.
Ran into him, and I'm like, if Weber was there, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Now with this defense, they're not going to score in bunches except for Weber. Weber's going to be that power play point shot there, but that defense is it's not going to be easy for them to somebody to play against.
There were 23 deals that were made in the NHL
23
at exactly 12 o'clock when free agency opened up. Let's run through the list here. Carl Alzner was the first one to obviously get signed. I think that was almost writing on the wall. You saw it coming from a mile away. Justin Williams was next to sign. So that was right off the bat, 2 Washington players have left. Alzner to Montreal, Williams to Carolina on a 2-year term, $9 million deal. Cap hit of 4.5.
Carolina?
To Carolina. Yeah. It's a good deal.
He just wanted to be home.
I believe so. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, he loved Carolina. He won the cup in Carolina.
2006. Yeah.
So he was comfortable. Yeah, I saw his interview. He was saying he was good be back home. He liked it.
And I mean, that's good for him.
Yeah.
He is getting up there in age. But Mr. Game 7 going to Carolina, hopefully they can make a playoff. Or at least a push, for that matter. The next one to sign was Martin Hanzal, he kind of shared time between Arizona, then going to Minnesota for a combined 20 goals, 19 assists at 39 points, but was a minus 17. Signs a 3-year deal to go to Dallas at $14.25 million. Is this a guy who just needs to find a system that suits him? Because he was good in Arizona, but he absolutely bombed it in Minnesota. Do you think this is a system in Dallas that Hansel's going to be comfortable with?
It's so hard to tell. I don't know what's going to happen with him because it reminds me of Kovalev. There was a couple of weeks where, oh my God, he scores 10 goals in 3 games, and all of a sudden he disappears.
Yeah.
You see the highlights, oh, amazing player, but then all of a sudden for 2 or 3 weeks he's cold.
Yeah.
It's one of those players where I'm hit or miss, right? And I'm confused and I'm torn up. I think he's a good player, but can he keep it up?
That is
you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
That is interesting to know.
Yeah.
I think that's what Minnesota's mind frame was when they picked him up. Obviously didn't pan out for them at all. He did nothing for them in the postseason.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You'll have this player on one team. Perfect example with Sagan in Boston.
Yeah.
He wasn't that great. He was average.
Good.
He was average.
He was good. He was good.
Then he went to a different system. Then
boom. But mind you, the reason why he left was
Boston,
obviously for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think this is a system that he may be a little bit more comfortable with. Obviously, being in Arizona, he had absolute no pressure. Then went to Minnesota and obviously felt the pressure. I'm hoping a 3-year deal kind of calms him down a bit. Just lets him focus more on the game itself.
Now, is he going to have pressure in Dallas?
Much more pressure than he felt in Arizona.
That's for sure.
Maybe not Minnesota, but definitely more than Arizona. As we look to the Vancouver Canucks, who made 2 signings, in Sam Gagner coming out of Columbus. 18 goals, 32 assists for 50 points at a plus 10 rating for 3 years, 9.45. And then signing Michael Del Zotto out of Philadelphia with 6 goals, 12 assists for 18 points at a minus 5 rating for a 2-year deal at $6 million, which means it's an average cap hit of 3.
How do you feel with Del Zotto gone?
I like him.
As a Flyer fan,
yeah. I honestly, I did like him. This right here is addressing Vancouver's power play issues in Gagne and Del Zotto. Del Zotto is a puck-moving defenseman. He can move the puck. That is definitely something Vancouver needs in the back end. They don't have that. They have nothing back there.
First, they need a goaltender.
Yes, yeah, okay, and they did look at some options here.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note, though. I think, they got their veteran group in the Sedin Twins, and we get that. But I think they needed a shot in the arm here. They needed to revamp some of their crew here.
They gotta go.
I think this is a good start. I honestly think these 2 pickups are a step in the right direction. Obviously, you want Gagne to continue putting up the points he did in Columbus. Again, Gagne came from the Flyers. The Flyers had him, who went to Columbus. And Gagne didn't, do so well in Philadelphia, but he went to a system that worked for him in Columbus. Obviously a different look in Vancouver, but I think he will succeed there. Again, this is a guy they need on the power play, along with Del Zotto. I think this is a pretty good pickup, nonetheless, for Vancouver on both ends of the. On
hopefully, Louis Eriksson can actually do something.
That's true. That's true. Steve Mason, speaking of Philadelphia, has signed elsewhere. He's actually making the exact same amount he was making in Philadelphia, but now signs with the Winnipeg Jets on a 2-year term, $8.2 million deal, 4.1 cap hit. He got 26 wins and 54 starts, .908 save percentage, and a 2.66 goals against. This is obviously probably a backup for Helleboy. But I don't know, because you look at the contract and you look at the money that he's making, and I don't know if I would go as much as $4 million to spend on a backup.
But Hellebuck is an RFA right now, right?
I believe he is, yeah.
So
maybe this is an insurance?
Just in case they lose him, then he doesn't want to sign.
It's true. It is interesting to note Mason's on a 2-year deal.
Yeah, and they got the other guy, Michael Hutchinson, for another year for under just $1 million.
Yeah,
$1 million.
It will be interesting to see out of Winnipeg here what they're going to do.
And I'm happy it's not Pavlik.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but I thought he just needed to get out of that team, or they needed to get rid of him.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Pavlik moving from Winnipeg to the New York Rangers, obviously to fill the shoes of Ranta. It's a 1-year deal, $1.3 million. He had 4 wins out of 8 starts, .888 save percentage, 3.55 goals against. What do you think of this deal? What do you make of this?
Well, they needed to cover up the whole Ranta thing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised it was Pavlik. I didn't expect him to sign, but he only signed, what, a year?
Yeah, I agree. At a $1.3 million cap hit, I would probably take that chance. I don't think Pavlik is probably the best option that they had in free agency, but for the price, it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Obviously Lundqvist is still that guy.
He's probably going to play a good 20 games, maybe.
If that.
If that. That's if Lundqvist stays healthy.
Yeah.
Which most likely.
His numbers weren't that good, to be honest, in his 8 starts. But nonetheless, I think with a New York Ranger defense, it's gonna be a good fit for Pavlik, I would hope.
With their new installment.
Big signing for their defense was Kevin Shattenkirk, the supposed top free agent available that was available for Canada Day. The Rangers picked him up on a 4-year deal, $26.6 million, which is a 6.65 cap hit, 13 goals, 43 assists for 56 points, -7 plus-minus rating.
It's the Rangers. That's all I have to say.
It's the Rangers.
Yeah. Was expected a big move.
What I like about this deal was the amount of years. This wasn't a big 8-year contract that Glenn Saylor was going to eat up afterwards.
Yeah.
Or in this was Gordon, Glenn Saylor.
4 years?
Yeah, it's a 4-year deal. I think this is one that I could actually like out of the Rangers. I don't know if Shattenkirk is the answer to what the Rangers are trying to accomplish here. Shattenkirk, I think, was overvalued in terms of being that top free agent guy. I just don't see it yet.
Okay, and then who's a defenseman out there that you would
I'm not saying. Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Here's my look at it. Shattenkirk played a lot better when he had Pietrangelo around him.
Oh, of course.
And it just seemed like it took him a long time to find his stride in Washington. I don't think Washington had the faith in him that St. Louis did.
So now if you put Shattenkirk with Mark Stahl
maybe
or McDonough,
I think would be McDonough. I think it would be a Shattenkirk-McDonough pairing. Shattenkirk, obviously a hometown boy, was told by reports that he was offered more. He actually even confirmed
turned down.
He actually turned him down so he can stay because he's a local boy. He's a New York boy.
New York.
And Kevin Shattenkirk signing a 4-year deal with the Rangers.
Who did he say? Who offered him more?
Or he didn't specify.
He just said that somebody did.
Yeah, he just said there was a couple of offers and that he did appreciate. Their offers and stuff like that.
I was just out of curiosity who offered.
But there is a saying, Mike, that when one door closes, another opens. So which means if the Shattenkirk door opened, someone was on their way out. Dan Girardi, 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points and a +8 rating, signed a deal with the Tampa Bay Lightning for 2 years at $6 million. I think this is expensive. I think Tampa Bay is overvaluing this guy. Girardi is not as good as he was a couple of years ago. But nonetheless, they saw some potential in him. They signed him a 2-year deal. Do you find this to be an expensive contract, or would you have done something similar?
I have no idea what Steve Yzerman's doing there. I'm just confused on that team. I don't know if they're building for a playoff run. I don't know if they're gonna.
Yeah, it is kind of odd.
Yeah,
Tampa Bay. I'm at a point where it's almost they're gonna succeed to no one's expectations, or they're going to bomb, and it's one extreme or the other.
Now that they don't have Drouin for their. They're going to rely on Stamkos the whole season? Or can Ryan Callahan kind of pick it up?
No, but I think that's part of why Girardi went to Tampa Bay. I think Ryan Callahan kind of, helped him decide Tampa Bay is the landing spot to be. Again, I just think it's an expensive deal.
Before every game, you go catch some sun at the beach.
Of course. Why not? I would too.
Yeah.
Especially making that kind of money he's making off of Tampa Bay, I'd be at the beach every day.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting contract. It's a good term. I think it's a little bit overpriced, but it's interesting to see that nonetheless. Let's look at some other signings that happened during right at the top of the noon hour. Brian Elliott expected to sign and did sign with Philadelphia, 2 years, $5.5 million, obviously to replace Steve Mason in this point.
Now, you're a Flyers fan.
Yeah.
Did they finally solve the goaltending situation in Philadelphia?
Not even close.
Close.
This is just a direct response for losing Steve Mason.
Was there was there a year where you're like, okay, we finally got someone like back in the day when we had Ron Hextall? I don't think there was a goalie that would.
No. Obviously, you
they had the hopes up with what's his name, Brizgalov, and he wanted to fight bears and stuff like that.
No, I did not have faith in that signing. When they signed Brizgalov,
that was a big contract.
Nowhere. Well, it was too much. They should have made some sort of a 1-year deal, tested him out in Philadelphia. That's what they need to do.
Sort of what the Montreal did with Radulov. Yeah. Give him the 1 year, see what happens.
See what he can do.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love the contract, though. We're paying less money than we were paying Steve Mason. A lot less money. And we're hoping to find a Brian Elliott here that played some stellar performances in St. Louis and in the back end of that Calgary stretch before the postseason. Does this even comes close to solving Philadelphia's goaltending issue? Not a chance. There is several things they need to take care of. But Brian Elliott, I don't think is that answer, but I think it answers the
Mason
who is going to replace Steve Mason question.
Yeah.
So, you know what? I'm going to look at it from that perspective.
You'd say it's a Band-Aid on the bleeding?
Yeah, more of a patchwork.
Yeah.
I think it will hold down. If he can show what he showed in St. Louis, I'm a happy camper. Like, you know, that's all I'm hoping. I'm hoping him and Neuwirth kind of fight it out for the number one. I still have faith in Neuwirth, but it's all a matter of time before we see the same old Philadelphia stuff go down. Trevor Daley going from Pittsburgh to Detroit. 5 goals, 14 assists, 19 points, 3-year deal at 9.5. I think it's a good deal. I think this is more of a defense that that Tampa Bay should have gone for. I still don't get the Dan Girardi deal. The money that they spent on him, they could have spent on Trevor Daley. I think he's more of a player that would have got him, that would have got better results in Tampa Bay. But so be it. He goes to Detroit, 3-year deal, close to $10 million. Is this a good deal?
No, an average deal.
It's. I would say, you know what? I think it's fair value for what you're getting.
Yeah.
What you're getting in Trevor Daley, you know, it's fair value, and I think Detroit recognized that, gave him the nod there with the 3 years. Patrick Sharp going from Dallas to Chicago, back to where he won his cup.
If I'm correct, his contract. Something to do. What was it?
It's 1 year, $1 million. 18 points last year.
I heard
minus 22.
From what I understood, that's actually at $800,000, and if he hits a certain amount of points, or a certain amount of games, he gets the $1 million.
Hey, I'm okay with that.
So they're paying him $800,000.
Yeah.
He's at
let's
$800,000. So if he hits so many games, then he gets his $1 million.
Let's just assume he does hit the point value that, you know, Chicago's looking for here. Would you still sign him at 1 year, $1 million? I think I would. At 18 points, that's not even fair. I think that's a really good deal for a Patrick Sharp type of player.
35.
He's older. He's much older. But for a year, I think you can't go wrong.
His contract is based on bonuses or based off games played.
Yeah. Oh, games played.
Games played. So
okay.
So his contract $800,000.
Right.
That's their cap hit.
Right.
So his bonus is $200,000 based on games played.
Right.
That's how the source is.
So it is an interesting contract. I like it. If I was Chicago, I would have done that deal a million times. You're getting a player you know, and you're getting a player that you want to cup with. That's all there is you need to know.
Yeah.
Another 12 o'clock acquisition, Ryan Miller going from Vancouver to Anaheim. A lot of this is because Ryan Miller lives in Anaheim, or just outside of Anaheim, I'm not sure. It's a 2-year deal, $4 million. I honestly would have preferred a Ryan Miller deal as well for Philadelphia as a backup role. It's a good deal. You're getting a guy who's posting a .914 save percentage, but he only got 18 wins out of 54 starts in Vancouver. So clearly, the goalie was doing something right. He just didn't have a defensive support in front of him.
Yep.
And this is what we alluded to earlier with the whole acquisition of Shattenkirk. Or sorry, not Shattenkirk. With Del Zotto going to Vancouver. They need more puck-moving defensemen. So now, Ryan Miller to Anaheim at 2 years, $4 million.
And with that Anaheim defense, I think they're gonna do a lot better. He will do a lot better.
Well,
he'll have more wins because they play a different game.
It's certainly a better fit for Miller. Again, he's home. His home is there. He's right there. So with Ryan Miller going to Anaheim, that means there was no room for Jonathan Bernier. Again, he posted up some really decent numbers here. 2.5 goals against average, 9.15 save or .915 save percentage, with 21 wins in 33 starts. Going to, and I feel bad for him, Colorado on a 1-year, $2.75 million deal. Colorado, I think, is hoping that Bernier kind of brings what he brought from Anaheim. Here's my problem with this. This is Colorado. They had Picard in that last year, which, you know what? I'll give Picard his due. He's a not bad goalie. You saw in the World Championships. But I just don't think Bernier is going to fit here. He struggled in Toronto. How much better is he going to do in Colorado?
It's Varlamov's net. Is he going to...
absolutely.
But the thing is,
doesn't mean that...
But can he...
But Bernier's not going to post the numbers he did in Anaheim out in the Mile High.
Not what the Colorado team they have now.
No. They need to make some major adjustments there.
We're waiting for Duchesne trade.
Boy, oh boy. I'm still waiting on that. Let's wait to see what they get in return for Duchesne. But once again, Bernier to Colorado. Anders Nielsen going to Vancouver on a 2-year, $5 million deal. I don't think he's the best option again, but Vancouver is hoping that a Swedish tandem with Markstrom as their number one guy kind of does the trick for them. This is a pretty cut and dry contract. I think it's not a bad contract. .923 save percentage, 2.67 goals against, 10 wins on 23 starts. Not a bad backup, but again, not the greatest pick. I would say.
What's available out there, right?
Yeah. Now we look to Pittsburgh. They re-upped on Justin Schultz, so they gave him some money. So they got rid of Ron Hainsey. They let him go to free agency. 17 points last year. Goes to Toronto on a 2-year, $6 million deal. With the whole Patrick Marleau acquisition that just happened, I think this is a little bit expensive for another veteran guy. But I think they want a veteran guy in the backhand, much as they did in the forward group. So I think this is value for the future, and I think you have to pay a little bit now to get that in the future. Do you agree to this, or what do you think of this Hainsey?
He's an average player.
He is. I mean, don't get me wrong. He played in Carolina. He never made the playoffs until last year. Then he won the cup. Mind you, on a Pittsburgh team. But nonetheless, Hainsey finally got what he was looking for.
Give credit to that Pittsburgh defense because they played good.
They did.
They won the cup.
They had some serious issues back there, but they kind of persevered through it. Nate Thompson going to Ottawa, unproven last year. He really didn't do anything there. 2-year, $3.3 million deal. Pavlik we spoke about going to the Rangers. Niemi from Dallas got bought out, became a free agent. Pittsburgh grabbing Niemi as their backup, obviously losing Fleury to the expansion draft at 1 year, $700,000. Is this a good contract?
Yeah, you need a backup. There's your backup.
This by far is surprising because you would think teams would look at a player. I'm not saying Niemi is the greatest goaltender out there.
No.
He is sometimes overrated because he won a cup in Chicago.
But that year was Philadelphia and Chicago that year.
Yeah, 2010.
He won.
Yeah.
That year was the highest scoring playoff between the two.
It is.
The final.
Yeah, sure.
The defense was defense was horrible.
The
goalies was horrible.
Yeah.
With the offense Chicago had that year, I think I could have won the cup on.
It was one of those. Yeah, you can score 6. I'm gonna score 7.
Yeah, that's how nasty it was.
But I think with a Pittsburgh defense in front of him, at 1 year, $700,000. This is a fantastic deal. Another goaltender acquired as a free agent, Chad Johnson, going to Buffalo 1 year, $2.5 million. I like this deal. I really do. I think he's a little underrated. .910 save percentage, 2.59 goals against, 18 wins of 36 starts. Again, he shared time in Calgary. Well, it does say Arizona, but that was just for the offseason. Dmitry Kulikov, a defenseman, signing with Winnipeg, 3-year deal, $12.9 million. He got 5 points last year, minus 26 rating, but it is something Winnipeg needed. I'm torn a little bit at the price tag. I think there was a couple of options they could have looked at prior to getting Kulikov, but that's where Winnipeg went.
26 years old, $4.3 million a hit for 3 years.
Yeah, 4.3.
Yeah,
you're giving someone $4.3 million. I think he needs to be a little better than a minus 20. Again, this is Buffalo we're talking.
Yeah.
But you need to have a better stat line than 2 goals, 3 assists, in my opinion, for that kind of money.
Yes.
Like, for example, the next defenseman, Matt Hunwick, who was in Toronto, signed with Pittsburgh. So again, one door closes, another one opens. Hainsey out, Hunwick in. Pittsburgh acquires Hunwick at a 3-year deal for $6.75 million. This is a good deal. 1 goal, 18 assists for 19 points with a +8 rating. This is more value than a Kulikov, I would think, in my humble opinion. But what do you think of the deal? Is this a smart move of Pittsburgh to get Hunwick to replace someone like Hainsey?
Yeah, that's what it's straight out that deal is for.
It's pretty par when you look at their points. 19 versus 17.
Yeah.
Hainsey was a -8. Hunwick was a +8. Obviously, different systems there, but pretty much close to a similar deal. But I like the signing from Pittsburgh. But Toronto lost another player in Brian Boyle. 13 goals, 12 assists with 25 points with a +3 rating, going to New Jersey for a 2-year, $5.1 deal. I think this is probably one of the most expensive fourth-line guys you can have on your team. He brings the experience. He brings everything you look for in a veteran. But man, is he expensive for a fourth-line guy. Would you sign, even if you didn't have any veteran leadership in your group, would you sign a guy who's a fourth-liner to a pretty steep contract like that, making $5 million over 2 years for a fourth-line center?
Fourth line, no.
That's...
no.
Because I don't see it. I don't see myself spending that money. I think New Jersey wanted a name in Brian Boyle, another veteran leader, as we call it. And but I think they pretty much overpaid for this.
I think is it the fact that they probably lost some scoring touch with... Was Camilleri there last year? Yeah,
Camilleri.
He's gone.
That is the other person I want to speak to you about, is Michael Camilleri, going from New Jersey, signing with Los Angeles Kings. 10 goals, 21 assists for 31 points. 1 year, $1 million.
Totally worth it.
I would
give it a shot.
I agree.
He's got the touch still. He can still score.
I agree. I think this is another one of those contracts where you can't go wrong. Low risk, high reward.
Yeah.
And he's
especially on the Kings team.
Well, he's going back to where he started. Mm-hmm. Just like Justin Williams, he's going home. So LA Kings for Michael Camilleri. Some other notable contracts that signed. Scott Hartnell bought out from Columbus. 13 goals, 24 assists for 37 points. Plus 14 rating. Signs with Nashville Predators. Another 1 year, $1 million deal. Another contract I think is pretty good for a guy who put up close to 40 points last year.
Is everyone jumping on the bandwagon with Nashville now? Everyone wants to play there?
It seems like it. It definitely seems like it. I must say, Nashville is a very compelling team. You talk about a lot of these teams that have a dynamic duo. Taves, Kane, Crosby, Malkin. Now you're looking at Edmonton with McDavid, Draisaitl. And Nashville doesn't have a team like this. They're building from the net out. And you can tell with the defensive core that they got that they're definitely doing it different, but it works for them. And so it's a very interesting team to keep an eye on.
And they didn't depend on the one guy to score.
Absolutely. An interesting note, Florida signs someone from the KHL that actually played for Florida several years back, Evgeny Dadonov, who scored 30 goals, 36 assists for 66 points in the KHL to a 3-year, $12 million deal. If he can put up those points for Florida in an NHL rink, then that is a very cheap contract. Yeah. That is definitely a guy who is a left winger who they need because they got rid of the ageless wonder in Jaromir Jagr. If that guy can perform at that KHL level in the NHL, by all means, I signed that contract every day of the week.
But the KHL is not the NHL.
No, and
we'll wait and see.
And it's one of those wait and see. Again,
cross your fingers.
This one is a little more risk for high reward, but I think it's definitely worth it. Again, it's kind of hard to kind of calculate how they're gonna do in a different sort of rink. Some other notable ones: Chris Kunitz, 1 year, $2 million, going to Tampa Bay Lightning. Veteran forward. It's an okay signing, cheap. The guy won 3 Stanley Cups with Pittsburgh. You know, you sort of can't go any wrong with that. Radim Verbata, 20 goals, 35 assists for 55 points, but a minus 18 rating going to Florida on a $2.5 million deal. I think that's sort of a gamble, in my opinion. But at 2.5, I'd probably take the risk if he's willing to put another 55 points up on the board for the Florida Panthers. So that seems to be about it. But before we go, I want to ask you one question. Of the best value contracts, and I'm going to list them, I need you to tell me which one you think was the best deal. We had Patrick Sharp on a 1 year, $1 million, who got 18 points last year, going to Chicago. Niemi going to Pittsburgh on a 1 year, $700,000 deal in a backup role to Matt Murray. We got Alex Burmistrov, who got 16 points last year, going to Vancouver at 1 year, $900,000. We got Mike Camilleri going with 31 points to the Los Angeles Kings on a 1 year, $1 million. And a Scott Hartnell who got 37 points to Nashville on a 1 year, $1 million. Another guy who's returning to where he started in Nashville. If there is the best discount here, I'm kind of torn between Hartnell and Camilleri just because they're two different players. Hartnell's more of a grit guy. Camilleri's more of a playmaker. You know, he's playing a different style of game that Hartnell does. Hartnell's more of a fall and get up, and you know, like he's more chippy. He's that kind of grinder. 1 year, $1 million deals for most of them, or under. Out of all those, Sharp, Niemi, Burmistrov, Camilleri, or Hartnell, if there was one of those 5 that you get out of those bargain deals, who would it have been?
I would go Sharp.
Patrick Sharp.
Yeah.
Even at his age.
Even for his age, he brings you that leadership.
Yeah.
And with the Stanley Cups in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he knows what it takes to win the cup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I admit he had Kane and Taves in there, but
and he's got him again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Won't be surprised if they go through another playoff run.
Absolutely.
Hopefully they'll win a game this time, and hopefully they don't face Nashville.
Let's hope so. I think
depends on which goaltender shows up for Nashville. There.
Oh, for sure. I do think the most underrated signing of those 5 is the Burmistrov. I think he's pretty quick. I think he's got something to offer the Vancouver Canucks. But aside from that, I would have picked Camilleri or Hartnell. Yeah. One of those two. Those are kind of... The
Camilleri one was...
kind of my guys.
It was a good pickup.
As you know, we lost a legend in the Edmonton Oilers community in Semenko, and one of Grexy's bodyguards.
Yeah,
I would say.
Was known.
So we want to just send out our condolences to his family there, and we'd like to thank all of you for listening to the second episode of Talkin Puck. Of course, you can definitely follow us on social media via Instagram and Twitter at Talkin Puck, once again without the G, because we're cool like that. And you can also visit our website at talkinpuck.com. Thank you for listening, and once again, we'll see you next week.